quotation mark, close brackets. And this should pull through the number 1. I'm getting good at this. Hey team, I'm Stuart Taylor from Influential PMO, and I'm here to support the project community. This is the second part in the Skills Matrix series, where in the first part we looked at individual scores against different skill sets. Today we're going to be looking at team skills and cohort skills and how to represent that visually. Don't forget that this is a practical lesson, so get your Excel fired up and get ready to go. This is the basic skills matrix we created last time in Excel. If you weren't part of that and you want to see how that was done, then there is a link in the description. I urge you to follow that first, watch that video in its entirety, and then come back to this one. So this is the original skills matrix we created, and you can see it's based on the individuals listed here and various skills listed across the top, and the scores represent these different levels of expertise. These fed into this lookup page where there was a drop-down menu created here, where the graphs would update themselves based on the content available based on the individuals listed from this sheet. So what we're going to do now is add a new column, and we'll select column D here by right clicking on it and going to insert, and we're going to call this team. If you don't have different teams within your group that you're looking at, you can always list by different levels of expertise, different levels of seniority, and have those kind of values represented in here instead. So the first thing I'm going to do here is create a little bit more space to add a few more people. So I'm right clicking on the row numbers and I'm just hitting insert and just dropping a few lines in there, just so we've got a few more people to play with. And I'm not worried about the values that are in here at the moment. They're not really that important. And so I've just copied down what was in the previous ones, and we'll come up with a few more names here now. As always, my mind goes blank when I get to this part when it comes to dummy data, so I'm just going to list people I knew from school. So I'm going to make myself a PM, and Chris a BA, Gurdeep a QA, Sarah a PM, Bob a BA, Lisa a QA, and Karen a PM. I'm going to create a new worksheet now. It's going to present the PM skills. I could have picked any of them, BA, QA, that doesn't matter. All that really matters here is that you keep in mind that this sheet is just for this skill set. Okay, so we click on the plus sign down at the bottom to create a new worksheet. Double click the name, and I'm calling this PM team. Now we go back to data. Highlight all of the skills that are listed, just the skills titles, right click, copy, go back to PM team, find your cell to put them into and go to paste, transpose, and once again the horizontal information becomes vertical. This time we're going to start to list the names of the PMs across the top. So going back to data, let's see who's a PM over here. Stuart, Sarah, and Karen. And we're going to leave a few blank columns in case you get a few more PMs coming in at a later stage. So we'll just leave about 3 extra in this case. And then I'm going to create a column where the average will be created as well. Once again, we're dealing with horrible Vlookups next, and if you're nervous about that, don't worry. As I said in the previous video, I make mistakes at them all the time, and they're really easy to fix once you get used to them. So don't worry about it, just follow me step by step. What we want to do here is populate this sheet with the data that was in the previous sheet, in the data sheet, but now running in a vertical format. We could do a copy and paste exercise here where we just copy the information across as we've just done with the actual skills there, but that's not exactly making the tool very future-proof, and it's not really a very long-term solution, especially if you've got multiple people in here. So the best thing to do is actually to use the Vlookups and add that little element of automation just to make your life a little bit easier in the long term. So let's get started on this. We go into the box, we're going to put the first formula in and put the equal sign, which starts it looking for a formula. And this time we're going to open it up with IfError. You see you're getting IfError and Vlookup in one formula here. You're getting 2 for the price of 1. I hope you're grateful. We're putting IfError on because we've got a few columns here. They're going to pull through blank information through the Vlookup, which will generate an error. And if we try to average an error, then the average will become an error as well, and it'll be useless to us. So we have to start off with IfError, open bracket, Vlookup, open bracket again, and this time we're looking at Stuart. So select the cell that my name's in, comma, and we have to put the table array in again. So we go back to data. Once again, we highlight all of the columns that we've got useful data in, and we press comma. Which column are we looking at? Well, this time we remember that column 1 is the first one, is C. Column 2 is going to be this one, D, which is looking at the cohorts, but we want schedule management, so we're selecting the third column, so we press 3 and comma and false. And by the way, between takes I sneaked in here and I changed the values in here to 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 to make it a lot easier when we actually pull this information through to see if there's an error. So look for that pattern in a moment, and we put close bracket. That's not the end of the formula, don't forget, we've still got the IfError to deal with, so we put comma, quotation mark, close brackets, and this should pull through the number 1. I'm getting good at this. So before we start copying this to all the other cells, we need to make sure that it's going to copy through in a way that's going to work going downwards and across. So if you remember from the previous session, if we just copied this down, what would happen? Well, I'll show you. We'll get an error. It doesn't work, and that's because it's not looking at C7 anymore as it should be here. It's not looking at my name. It's now looking at number 1. See? So we go back to the original cell and we put the $sign before the number 7 in the formula C7, or in the number of whichever row that you've got your table set up for. And if we drag that down now, all of the formulas will be looking at that number. So that's fine, that's exactly what we want. But that's not enough, because at some point we're going to drag that column down to copy it into those other cells there. So we've got values for all of the other skills, but then we're going to drag them across to the right as well. And what that will mess up is the table array. So Sarah's will be looking at D and L rather than C and K, and it'll just get worse and worse and worse as it goes. So we're going to put the $sign before each of those letters as well. And at the moment, it doesn't matter that we're going to be copying the same piece of data here. We're going to be copying from column 3. That's fine. We can change that in the next step. But for right now, just make sure that wherever your formula is, whichever cell it's looking at, for your name, it's got a $sign before the number, and it's got a $sign before each single letter of the arrays. Press enter. And now it should copy 1s all the way down. Good. And I'm going to just change this one here. If you remember what we did last time, we went to each of these cells and we changed the column number and we increased it by 1 for each. So that one becomes number 4. One becomes number 5. And you see the values it's pulling through, 1, 2, 3. So 5, 6. Next door's dog seems happy. 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so that's pulling through the right information. And if I copy this across to Sarah, fingers crossed, it'll copy across her information as well. So Sarah, if you recall, was a copy of my previous score on here, so she's got top marks on everything. So we're going to do a reverse pattern on hers. So hers will be 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2. Let's see if that's copied across into the PM teams. 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2. So we know that the formula is working, it's pulling through all the right information. So we've got some confidence now that it's pulling the right information across. And if we copy this all the way across here to the cell next to average, it's populated Karen's information, but it hasn't pulled anything through for these errors here. So what if this changes? Glad you asked. Suppose somebody in the data team changes roles. Let's say that Gurdeep has now become a PM. We mark him as a PM. And now we put Gurdeep's name into the team list. And you see it's automatically populated with all of his numbers. And he's set to number 4s on there. Yeah, so he's the high performer this week. And you see that you can just add anybody else's name in there that you like. So far so good. Now we're going to put the average formula in as well. This one's really difficult. You're going to have to pay attention to this one. Press equal to identify that you were putting a formula in again. And now we type in average, open bracket, highlight the cells that we're averaging, and close bracket. Ta-da! Okay, it wasn't hard. And now we can just copy that one all the way down. So now you've got an average pull through, showing the average score of the skill across your team, which is really useful because it helps you to identify where you've got gaps. And you can see here that this one's only 2.5. That's quite low compared to everything else. And that may be the area that you might want to work on, risk management. Yeah. So, how do we make this look a little bit easier to just interpret though? If you're getting value from this, don't forget to hit the like button. So now we're pulling this really useful information across where we're seeing the team scores, the team's average, and now we're going to turn that into a visual representation with a chart. To create the chart we want, we highlight the area that contains all the data that we want to show in that chart. Go to Insert, go to Recommended Charts, go to All Charts, go down to Radar. And we don't pick the first one because that's looking at the wrong series. We go to the second one. And you just hover over there for a moment and just make sure that you're seeing the skills on the outside of the chart in its preview rather than the names. In the first one, you see the names are all on the outside there, and that's no use to us. So we go to this one. This one's showing the skills on the outside. Click on that one, press OK. Voila. So we can see the names in the legend here, and their colors are represented inside of here. And we can see average inside of here. And we're going to make this a little bit better. So we click on to average, and you've got to be real careful with this one. And this sometimes the undo button comes in really useful here. You've actually got to make sure you've clicked on just the area here that you're interested in. So it's just showing average. Because if you try to do a change of color on this, sometimes you end up coloring the whole chart and coloring that in. Right click on that, go to outline and select black. And now that really stands out against everything else. If there are any other colors on here that just aren't very clear, you can always click onto them. For example, I tend to think that yellow on white is sometimes a little bit difficult to see. It doesn't contrast enough. I think it's coming across okay here, but if I was really worried about it, I would click onto that one, highlight, go to outline, and maybe give it a dark green or something. I think that looks a lot better. If we decide to change the chart title, we just double click onto it. You see it's opened up the format chart title, which is actually useful in a different way in a moment. I'll show you how that can be useful. And we highlight the words we want to change and now call this PM Team Skills. Drag that across, just so you've got a little bit of space where you can see the buttons on the side here. If you want to change the chart elements, you just hover over the plus sign here and give it a click. And this is where you can add things like data labels. If you want to see the numbers popping up on all the spikes there. We can have them pop up as callouts, or there's all sorts of other options. I personally don't really like them. We can make the legend disappear if you want to, or come back. And as you can see there, it's come back in a slightly different place. My preference for this kind of thing is to put the legend down at the bottom. I think that tends to look a little bit better. And if we click onto the legend itself and we go back up to home, we can give them a slightly darker font so they stand out a little bit better. And maybe we can, if we click onto the text box that's got the title on here, we can make that stand out a little bit more as well. However you want to present that, that's all a matter of personal choice. There's some things we can do to make this look a little bit better as well in the chart format area over here. So one of the things that happens sometimes is you might want to copy and paste this into a different document. And one of the things I really hate about it is when you copy and paste it, it comes with a thin grey box all around the outside, and sometimes that might not be what you want. And if you do want a thin grey box around it, what you can do is you can add that in whatever tool you're adding it into. So if you're putting it into a PowerPoint, you can add a border to it there if you like. But if you're not sure if you're going to need it or not, it's a good idea to just get rid of it. So you click onto this open space anywhere that's not touching anything in here, so you don't click on any of these titles, and go over to border in the format chart area. Sorry, let me get rid of that. And you click on no line. And now if we click over here, you see there's no line around it anymore. And it just makes it just a lot easier when it comes to formatting and putting that into other tools. If you want to make this a little bit bigger as well, you can just click into the chart area and just pull out these handles here. And that can be really helpful as well. When you're happy with how it looks, you can just right click anywhere on that chart area and go to copy, and you can paste it anywhere else. So for example, we can create a new sheet here and we paste it using destination theme. Just put it neatly up there, and you can start to create a collection of different charts to go into there. So if you want to go back to the PM team and just drag that out of the way, and suppose we want to do a different way of looking at the same information, or maybe you want to just look at, remember before we said that we were going to look at just some core skills. So suppose these top 4 items here are core skills. We just highlight those and we go to insert, recommended charts, and yeah, we can create one of these nice bars here. And also this one automatically puts the average on as well. So that's pretty cool as well. And we can call this one core PM skills. Give it a horrible red font on its title as well. I don't know why I did that on the last one. It's my least favorite color for a title. Again, we click into the chart area, right click on it and go to copy. We go across to our so far unnamed sheet, drag that one down and paste it in again using the destination theme. Snap them together nicely. And oh yes, see, I've left the lines on this one. So again, I click onto that one and go to border, no line. Just looks a little bit nicer in my opinion. And one of the things we looked at before, we highlight the affected area that these charts are appearing in now. Go to page layout, go to print area, set print area. We can see these dotted lines here, which shows that there's the edge of a page there. So we know we shrink that slightly, it'll fit inside of there. And now we can see this line here as well, showing that there's the page size is there as well. So one of the things you can do around that is you can either shrink everything so it all fits nicely, and just drag that up there and shrink that a little bit more so it fits inside of there, so that you don't have any of these lines running through any of your charts. And when we look at that one on a print preview now, they kind of fit. Actually, they're overlapping here slightly. I don't like that. I think the chart has expanded slightly underneath the title. Yeah. So just shrink that down again. Okay, and can move that title. In fact, the title can just move over there. There's no reason why it should be central. There we go. I think that actually looks a little bit better. Okay, so we go back to File and Print to get to the print preview. And we've got a good representation here of the core skills, showing how everyone's performing against different skills. And here we've got the wider version of that. And don't forget, this information in here is changeable. Now that we've copied these graphs across, we can just drag them out the way. It doesn't really matter anymore. If you want to change this information, you just got to remember not to do it in this sheet, because you'll be typing over the formulas. You've got to go back to the data sheet. And suppose Gurdeep has been found to be massively overrated, and he's not 4s in everything. He's just 2s. Let's copy that across to there. So he's 2s in everything. And if we go back to our unnamed skill sheet, you see that Gurdeep here has now shrunken in there, and he has shrunken here as well. So that's completely automated. I'll tell you what, let's call this something like printable sheet. You can give it a better name. I'm thinking off the top of my head here. As we saw previously, we can go to File and Print and select the printer name to be print to PDF or whatever variation of that you've got on your machine. And this will actually turn into a very nice looking one-page PDF document that can be easily attached to your records and can easily be transferred without having to send an Excel document that someone can just mess up by sticking a 0 in the wrong cell and ruining everything. So that's how I do the team skills matrix. And there's one more thing I wanted to show you, and a little bit of an explanation on why I didn't do something that I could have done. You remember that I put these team cohort names on here. What I could have done is created a sheet where we select, much like we've selected individuals from this sheet here, we could have selected the cohort and had some sort of automatic skills tables pop up on that as well. The reason I didn't is I find this version works better. And what you're doing here is you're actually taking a bunch of small, simple steps, as opposed to trying to create something that's way too clever to begin with, that a beginner could easily get tripped up by. And despite the fact that I've got a little bit more experience of doing this now, I've still stuck with doing it this way because I find it so much easier to correct errors, to spot where there's something going wrong, and where the wrong data is being pulled through. It's so much simpler with this. It involves a little bit more work up front, and I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with that. As far as I'm concerned, investing that little bit more time at the beginning usually means that you spend less time chasing errors later on. With simplicity, there's elegance, and with simplicity, it's easier to transfer this knowledge to other people, for you to share this with your teammates, to teach remotely. You can give me feedback on that yourself in the comments, and I think that makes it worthwhile. So that's why I've chosen to go this way. There are ways you can do this where you don't see all the individuals' names, and you can just have an average being automatically calculated from the skills, and you just have this figure. And if that's all you want, there are ways to do that. But I prefer to have it set out in this way so that you can create these kind of visuals, and that works for me. And so far, nobody's complained, and everyone who's actually received this that I've worked for has been very impressed and very pleased with me for doing it. That said, I am a long way from being an Excel expert. I should have said that at the start of the video perhaps. But if there are Excel experts who can see ways to do this better, more efficiently, more easily than I've done it, please let me know in the comments. I'll be keen to learn from you. If you do have multiple teams or different levels of seniority where you have to distinguish between these people, your next step is going to be quite simple. You'll just recreate the activity you've just done for PMs, but you'll do it for BAs, for QAs, or for different levels of seniority. As you get used to doing this, you'll make mistakes. There's no problem with that. It's absolutely fine. It's part of the learning experience. One of the things that I can point to though, the areas where mistakes are likely to happen are these. If you're going to encounter any errors, it's most likely to be on this page. And what's happened, most probably, and there's lots of probablys involved with this, is you haven't got a $ on one of these references perhaps. And what's happened is you're not looking up the right information. So the way to check this, and Excel will help you to some extent, you'll see that in this cell here, because we're looking at this one, it's actually highlighted in the same color. And if there were multiple cells that are in the same formula on the same page, you'd see them all highlighted in different colors around the page. So that can help you in one way. So let's suppose this one's fine, but suppose this isn't looking up Sarah properly. If we click onto there and you see that this formula here isn't highlighting there, it's highlighting my name perhaps, it's probably just because you haven't put the $ in there when you dragged it across. If you're pulling the wrong information through, and it's probably because, so many probablys, because the table array is wrong, or the column index number is wrong. So just revisit those steps and see if there are any problems on there. Another thing that can be irritating is you're looking at something like this and you click another cell, and first thing that's happened is it's no longer looking up Stuart, it's looking up F10. So that's not going to pull anything useful through. So all you have to do is use our trusty undo button and hopefully get back to something a little bit more normal. Another thing that can go wrong is you're messing around in the formula again and you put something in there that just that breaks the formula in some way. Maybe you have a weird symbol pop in there and you start to get this, and it's really useless because you look at it and all it's telling you is there's something wrong with the formula. And you press OK and you go, okay, maybe that's fixed it. Press OK and it's like, no, it's not fixed it, and you press OK again. And you get stuck in here, and if you can't see what's wrong with the actual formula itself, it can be incredibly frustrating because it doesn't let you do anything else. So the trick to that is highlight the whole area, highlight the whole of the formula and delete it. Get out of there, press enter to get out of there, and then trusty undo button again. Thank you, undo, you're my only friend. I'm currently toying with the idea of doing a few more videos on data visualization to show you how to use different charts and different features in Excel so that you can break the monotony of column charts and pie charts, and maybe have more interesting representations of data. So please let me know in the comments if you're interested in that, and if lots of you ask for that, I'll prioritize it and I'll get around to it soon. Anyway, I'm Stuart Taylor from Influential PMO. It's been my pleasure to show you how to create these tools, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.